Before we begin, please consider subscribing to this channel. We're so close to 4,000 subscribers and... Alright, I'll get into the video. I'm Ian, and this is the Streets of Row character guide to the Jock. The Jock is unlocked via reaching a destruction level of 75 on any floor. This is trivially easy since all you have to do is cause as much property damage as possible before moving to the next floor with the exit elevator. As for your backstory, it reads, when not administering wedgies, swirlies, and Indian sunburns to nerds, the Jock enjoys running through walls at high speeds. When scientists contended this behavior destroys brain cells, the Jock passionately argued that this actually restores brain cells, ironically giving more validity to the scientists' claims. Scientists backed down after receiving the most severe purple nurples of their lives. Moving on to your stats and starting gear, your endurance and melee are maxed out at 4, with your speed not far behind at 3. Sadly, however, your firearm stat is a pathetic 1. This means the probability of you landing your shots with a gun is about the same as someone in a public bathroom not peeing on the floor, wherein the desired result and the result you're most likely going to get have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Still, I wouldn't worry too much about your non-existing gunslinging skills with this character since you don't start with any ranged armaments in your starting inventory. Indeed, the only items in your starting inventory consist of a must-leave pill to boost your overall melee damage, as well as a baseball bat because while there are characters that specialize in using their bare fists for everything, you're not one of them. As for your special ability, it is called Charge. This ability lets you rush through walls like the Kool-Aid Man. Before you get too excited to use this ability, there are many caveats that need to be considered. First of all, you cannot charge through literally everything in the game, such as metal walls or the world border. You also do not have any way to preemptively stop this charge ability once activated, meaning you will keep going in a straight line indefinitely until you hit something that can stop you, such as the world border wall or a metal building. This means if you're not careful with when and where you use this special ability, you can end up with an angry mob coming for your head because you tried to turn their houses into pavilions. Because I don't care how much you love the idea of an open concept building, you need to get the landowner's permission before you start the renovations if you don't want everyone trying to kill you. But even if you are fully prepared to have the entire floor trying to kill you, there are some other things you need to keep in mind when you're using this ability. First and foremost, that it does not provide any form of damage reduction or invulnerabilities of any kind. This means if you end up getting hit by something when you're using your charge ability, you're taking the full damage of that. This can be problematic when you end up charging into a generator since not only are you taking the full brunt of the explosion's damage, but you also have no way to steer once you activate this ability, so it's pretty much unavoidable once you set off the charge. Also bear in mind that once you hit something that's able to physically stop you from charging through it, like a police lockdown wall, you're going to end up hitting the ground face first and need a hot minute to get back up. All of this combined means that the biggest piece of advice I can give to any player who is intending to play the Jock is this. Do not use your special ability as an escape tool from a fight unless you're at full health, or completely out of other alternatives. The next biggest piece of advice I have to give to you is this. Plan your charges out carefully. Don't just recklessly charge through everything you see on the floor just because you can, because if you try to do that, you'll be in a one versus everyone on the floor desperately trying to finish your big quest. Thankfully, this ability has a bit of a wind-up to it, meaning if you just accidentally butt dial whatever button you set the special ability to, you won't end up accidentally charging through walls. You need to hold and commit to the charge before it happens. This does, however, mean that the charge ability is ill-advised to use as an offensive tool in the heat of combat. This special ability works best as a way of making shortcuts, not as a tool for escaping or entering fights. But then again, when we're talking about a character that just crashes through people's walls causing massive property damage, you're probably going to be fighting a lot of people no matter what you do, especially when you realize that your big quest requires you to do a considerable amount of property damage to begin with. But before we start explaining what your big quest is, we should go over what your starting traits are. The first and only positive trait you have at the start of the game is Master of Disaster. This trait is very easy to understand. It converts property damage into XP, meaning the more buildings you destroy, the higher your level's going to be. This synergizes rather nicely with your next trait, Computer Illiterate. This trait makes it so that you're incapable of using computers whatsoever. This means that hacking tools are completely useless to you unless you want to sell them off to a Cellomatic for some quick cash. More importantly, however, this means that the only meaningful interaction you'll be having with a computer terminal will be you smashing it. Thankfully, if a computer terminal is destroyed, all doors attached to it will automatically unlock, as well as disabling any electronics in the same building. This means if there's any laser security or locked doors in the building you destroy a computer terminal in, the prisoners and loot you wanted to get will be set free and easy to access. Your next trait on the itinerary is Sucker. This makes it so that stuff costs more. Think of it as the shopkeepers preemptively charging you for the property damage you're inevitably going to cause to their building. The last of your starting traits we have yet to cover is Loud. This trait makes it so that sneaking around will be significantly harder since every footstep you make can be heard from a square mile away. But let's be honest with ourselves here, if you're playing a character whose signature ability is to crash through people's walls like the Kool-Aid Man for maximum property damage, stealth and not being seen were never among your intended objectives. With the basics now covered, let's move on to your big quest. Your big quest is called Harmless Pranks. Contrary to the name, it is possibly the most dangerous quest in the entire game, requiring you to destroy every instance of a specific object on the floor. Sometimes all you need to do is smash some fire hydrants, while other times you need to destroy every single bed on the floor whilst the police lockdown encourages the floor's populace to be in said beds. Since the very nature of this big quest requires you to be pissing off several NPCs to the point where they'll try to murder you to death with lethal force, I strongly recommend grabbing any and all traits you can on level up that improve your overall durability, such as Modern Warfare. If you reach the Mayor's Village having done this quest correctly, your charge special ability will be buffed, charging faster, doing more damage when you hit something, as well as making it so that when your charge finally ends, instead of face planting into the ground, you'll immediately get back on your feet as if nothing ever happened. The best advice I can give for you when you're trying to go about this big quest is to simply grab anything and everything that improves your overall durability. This is because damage is pretty much unavoidable when you do this big quest, as you effectively make everyone and everything on the floor hostile as you cause as much property damage as possible. To give you perspective of just how difficult it is to stay alive when doing this big quest, remember, I've been using the same seed for every single one of these videos as I record gameplay. This means each run you're seeing in the background footage of my videos effectively involves me just playing through a map that I've all but memorized. And even with this advantage at my side, I still died during the run. The only reason I was successful on this run whatsoever was simply because the seed I used, the subscribe seed, which again you should totally do, I am so close to 4,000 subscribers, actually gives you resurrection shampoo in the slums from one of the mission objectives. Due to the intrusive nature of both your big quest and special ability, I give the Jock character a property damage out of 10. This character is great for those of you who care more about causing as much destruction as possible on a given run and don't actually care about whether or not you're able to reach the Mayor's Village and take his hat. However, if you're trying to play to win this game whatsoever, the Jock is simply outclassed by most of the other characters in this game. Still, the fun factor more than makes up for it in my opinion. Play this character to have a good time, not to try to win. That's all for now though. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next character guide. I've been Ian, you have been you, and this has been the Streets of Rogue character guide to the Jock. And stay tuned to the Investment Banker is coming up next.